the Joint National Executive Council of the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, TUC, have suspended the indefinite nationwide strike, which it entered on the second day on yesterday. The decision was reached at a meeting that deliberated on the outcome of an earlier interface with the federal government led by the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu. The TUC President, Festus Osifo, confirmed the suspension, adding that organized labor has received a commitment from the Ribadu-led meeting that those arrested for the physical assault on NLC President Ajaero will be prosecuted.
You recall that the organized labor is protesting against the alleged brutalization of its national president, Ajaero, and the failure of the government to implement some of the agreements reached on October 2nd, 2023, effectively. Now, let's take a look at some of the demands that were made by the NLC. Yes, it says there, great, it's on the screen. It says, arrest and prosecute Mr. Chinasa Waneri, the special advisor on special duties, the deadly gang leader of Hope Uzodima's thugs. He led the attack against workers on that day. It also says, arrest and prosecute and dismiss all police officers involved in the brutalization of the NLC president and workers in Imo State. Arrest and prosecute all thugs that attacked the NLC president in Imo State also. It was the third demand. Of course, there's also a little bit here that says, arrest and prosecute and dismiss the CSO Imo State Government House, SP Shaba. He led, participated, and provided cover for thugs to brutalize workers in Imo State. Arrest, prosecute, and dismiss the police area commander that led the brutalization of the NLC president and other workers in the state. And the final one, investigate and prosecute the former Imo State Commissioner of Police, CP Ahmed Bade. These are some of the demands, and of course the big question is, were any of these demands met? And if they weren't met, why then was the strike or the protest suspended? What promises did they receive from the NSA that made them, of course, suspend the strike? And also, Nigerians who were saying that it was even a selfish strike.
It was, actually.
Yeah, but joining us to discuss this suspension further is public affairs analyst Jide. Good morning, and thanks for your time. Mr. Ojo, can you hear us? Oh, well. We, of course, are still fixing the connection with Jide Ojo this morning. While we do that, we know the big questions, of course, that everyone is asking this morning simply, is, did any of the demands or are any of the demands met? I mean, aside promises, because, we're used to, and Nigerians, I believe, and the NLC itself is used to the federal government making promises to implement, some of their demands. Which, of course, always ends up with them coming back, to once again go on a protest 6 months later, claiming that the federal government has not implemented any of them. Has Waneri or Bade, any of the people mentioned in the NLC's 6 demands, been, arrested or suspended or sacked? And of course, how many people agree that it was similarly a selfish strike? Jide Ojo, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning.
Great to have you on the program this morning. Very interesting turn of events, with the NLC. Some would say that, this was really what was expected, that they would suspend the strike after 2 minutes and, everybody will go back to business as usual. But I want to start with your thoughts on the suspension, and of course, the promises made by the NSA. Were any of the demands met, any of the NLC's demands met before they decided to suspend it?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. I should say that the NLC or the labor unions, as it were, have no choice but to suspend that strike yesterday. Otherwise, Nigerian populace are likely going to rise against them and even further molest all of them who call themselves labor leaders. For the simple reason that this is not something that should have warranted a national industrial action. I mean, condemnable as it were, I do not support, molestation or harassment of anyone, let alone a labor leader. But for God's sake, I mean, we have had this time and again, individuals, citizens, VIPs who have been molested and harassed by people in government. Do they bring down the entire country because of such? I felt and this is my personal view, that what the NLC should have done and the TUC should have done is to press charges. From the list of those 6 demands, it will seem like they know exactly the identities of those who are involved in the harassment and molestation of Ajaero. And the right place will have been to go to court and press charges against the police and against those individuals and let them have their days in court. It will seem from those demands that the labor unions already have tried and convicted these people. They must be arrested, prosecuted, and jailed. They must be arrested and prosecuted and jailed. So what if the court did not find them culpable? I mean, you need to subject yourself to due process. Like I said, I felt this should not have led to nationwide protest. I don't know if you know the enormity of what the country have lost as a result of this 2-day strike. Billions of naira. Aside from that, what about lives that have been lost? Because I know that many hospitals were shut down and doctors could not assess their patients or attend to patients in those 2 days. Let me share a personal example with you. Way back in 2016, I lost a younger sister at the University College Hospital in Ribadu. What was the reason? National Association of Resident Doctors went on a warning strike, 1-week warning strike, and had to forcefully discharge my younger sister who was battling a congenital heart disease for which she was being prepared for surgery by the end of that month. When she was forcefully discharged, and this is somebody that was being monitored around the clock, you now discharge her based on the fact that National Association of Resident Doctors were going on 1-week warning strike. How do you want her to survive? We do not have hospital equipment in the home. So by the time we took her to a private hospital, it was too late. She died in the intensive care unit of the private hospital 3 days after. So what I'm saying is that the lives that have been lost as a result of this 2-day protest, it may seem like, okay, it's just 2 days. But those 2 days, you cannot quantify the economic loss that the country has incurred. You cannot quantify the lives that have been lost. All because of what? All of those 6 demands have nothing to do with the entire country. You are not fighting on behalf of the country. You are fighting on behalf of one individual. And we have had individuals who are molested, individuals, highly placed persons that have been tear gassed. They did not bring down the entire country because of such. And so, I mean, look at someone like Ganifa in his lifetime. How many times he has been harassed, molested, dragged, beaten up. He never called the NBA to boycott court on his behalf. He never said the country should stop functioning because he was molested by the security agents. And I watched Adam Soshomole, the former president of NLC, on a sister TV station, I don't want to mention, yesterday evening. And he said, he, under Obasanjo, was dragged on the tarmac and beaten up by DSS operatives. Just this Fourth Republic, under Obasanjo regime, while he was traveling to mobilize workers, I don't know whether in Edo or Delta or somewhere, and they prevented him from boarding. When he resisted, they dragged him on the floor, they beat him up, he had a cut on his hand. He did not say that NLC should down tools because of the personal injury to his person. He was even detained for 2 days. That is, I mean, you need to separate personal issue from labor issues. None of the issues that was tabled, that you have reeled out, has to do with the entirety of the country or states beyond Imo State. So why will you drag the entire country into this whole hopeless, strike? Is strike the only solution to this issue? There was purported to be a court order restraining NLC and TUC from going on this strike. They denied receiving the injunction, and they went on. Now, if they file contempt charges against them, they will say government is harassing labor. For God's sake, we should learn not to overreach ourselves. This strike, and this is my humble submission, was needless, was needless. The worst case, what NLC should have done
Right.
is to simply file a suit, to press for damages, to say that, look, my person has been violated. I know the identities of those who did it. These are their names. The court will summon them, including police. We have seen people who took police to court and won. We have seen people who took DSS to court and won. We have seen people who took government institutions to court, and including the presidency, and won. How many suits Serap has filed and won in court, even against the state institutions? So we should not be, and I have a view that this whole strike was politically motivated. I mean, unfolding scenarios show that Ajaero has special interest in Imo. Whatever he claimed Opus Odima did not do or did against the workers in Imo State, or it's also happening in other states. Why are they not picketing other states? Why are they not fighting the same cause in other states? Why did Ajaero limit it to Imo, which is his home state, where he has a candidate, where he has a partisan interest?
Well, part of their arguments, for Imo State would be that they were pushing for payments of salaries for civil servants and quote unquote the unjust treatment of civil servants. There had been a lot of combing and sweeping through alleged ghost workers, and they said that some people had been unjustly labeled ghost workers and then maybe deprived of their benefits. So many assertions here and there. But you've talked about this particular strike and talking about how this was not the right time and that the NLC did not prioritize the average Nigerian. Let's talk about the other previous strikes. If the NLC is known for one thing, it is a strike action. It is calling for a strike action, a few days later going to a closed-door meeting with the federal government and coming out to cancel the strike action. And would you say that the incessant strikes that the NLC has been calling in previous times have been, in utmost good faith in the interest of Nigerians? Or is there a better way that the NLC can make its demands known? We seem to see a number of these strikes happening over and over again, such that the people of Nigeria or the citizens of Nigeria now see it as a case of crying wolf when the NLC calls a strike. So analyzing the previous strikes and the way in which the NLC handles their issues, would you say that it's been in the interest of Nigerians, and would you say that that's the best approach that the NLC can take?
My sister, sincerely speaking, we should know that unionism has its own limit. And you cannot be using the same weapon time and again and not get a backlash from the people you are trying to fight for. First and foremost, we need to understand that Nigerian labor unions are primarily fighting the cause of the workers. Workers in the organized private sector, government workers, public servants, civil servants. Well, what about ordinary citizens like myself, who is into private enterprise? Are they fighting my cause? And we know from time immemorial that sometimes this whole strike is couched in nationalism and patriotism, whereas the labor leaders sometimes use this as a weapon of negotiation for their own personal aggrandizement. I am of the considered view that the Nigerian labor unions have not used the instrumentality of our courts sufficiently enough. I don't know whether you have heard of any time, to the best of my memory, any time that NLC has sued federal government for breach of workers' rights and privileges. Rather, they will give ultimatum. Oh, if you don't do this in 21 days, we are going on strike. That has been the challenge. That has been the problem. even with ASU. Now, government is now using, the government is now saying, if you go on strike, note this, there is ILO convention that talked about no work, no pay. If you feel that the only weapon you want to be using against government is to go on strike, be rest assured that while you are on strike, you will not be paid. And Buhari administration made good its promise by ensuring that ASU did not get the 8-month salary of while it was, and that's because they have taxed the patience of the federal government. Recall that ASU was on strike for 10 months in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. They started the strike in February and did not call off until December 23rd. And just last year, they went on another 8-month strike. And I wasn't surprised when Osarogie, the NLC President, quickly asked ASU to join NLC and TUC to down tools. Is that the only options available to our labor leaders? Is that the only options? Can't they reason, okay, if you go to court, there is National Industrial Court that can adjudicate on this.
Yeah, well,
you can explore that option. You can also explore the option of dialogue. You can also explore the option of even mobilizing opinion leaders to persuade government and listen. It's not all the time. It's like a child. If you beat a child every time he or she does something wrong, he will get used to it and say,
Mr. Ojo,
is it more than beating?
Mr. Ojo, I want us to,
yes, I'm listening.
X-ray a little bit more on, there's some other angle that I want to bring up, but just to mention, I don't know that, the NLC, of course, generally, even Nigerians have a lot of faith in the Nigerian Industrial Court or any court in the country. Mostly not because of the, the lack of, rulings that it can give, but the ability to enforce implementation of those rulings. There's not a lot of faith, and like you've said, SERAP has won 1 million cases against the federal government. I don't know that a lot of them have been implemented the way that the courts have ruled in favor of SERAP. But I also want to, speak about something. Earlier, I mentioned, how, this is scary for Nigerians because we currently don't have anything that we can hold on to as an opposition party. We currently don't have anything that we can hold on to as opposition generally against the current Nigerian government. And even in the recent past. And so when Nigerians are also losing faith in the Nigerian Labour Congress because of how they've continued to act and betray the cause of Nigerians for so long, it means that you don't have the National Assembly to speak for you as a Nigerian. You don't have the judiciary to take your side, somehow, some way, or to rule, in your favor as a Nigerian. You don't have an opposition party in the PDP or the Labour Party or anyone, to speak, for you as a Nigerian. And then you also do not have the NLC because nobody has faith in what they are doing. So is this a worrisome trend that we're seeing?
Exactly. It is a worrisome trend. Quite unfortunately, the role of opposition parties have been eroded because of corrupt practices and the fact that they themselves do not offer anything better than the government party in power. But you see, we have the civil society that have been doing a great deal of advocacy, mobilization and sensitization, and supporting government to strengthen our institutions. The setup case you mentioned, yes, for whatever it's worth, they chose the option of what is called public interest litigation, which is better than calling out people to go on street protest and coming arms with. Those who were killed in the struggle for the realization of June 12, How many people remember them today? I was in University of Lagos when that happened. I participated in that protest. And I know that many died in the course of that struggle. Well, what has been the aftermath? Who has cared and catered for the welfare and well-being of those who are involved? My own take is that we cannot continue to sideline our institutions. As weak as they are, we must have faith in them. We must have confidence in them. Look, there's something that says NLC should not even have a radio station or television station. I mean, we have community radios. We have almost all government institutions now having a radio and TV. They can have one to propagate their views and beliefs and to conscientize people so that even when they are not calling out workers on strike, people know their rights and people may be able on their own to fight for these rights. There are institutions of government where you can seek redress. There is National Human Rights Commission and there are the courts. So if you say, okay, the only weapon you want to continue to use repeatedly is strike. Under this Tinubu administration, we have had about 3 strikes by NLC TUC. The first one was over removal of fuel subsidy. Then there was another one over the same issue. Then we have this over Ajaero. But this one stinks to high heaven because of one individual. You shut down the entire economy, the entire country. It's not right. You must not overreach yourself. That's the point I'm making. I'm not even saying that it's not, I mean, that labor or labor unions cannot mobilize for protest and civil disobedience. My brother, go and read the history of India. The Mahatma Gandhis of this world, the Pandit Nehrus of this world, were they calling, when they engage government at that time, what they use is civil disobedience. Yeah. Civil disobedience, sit at home and a civil means of this, to press home their demands. We've been having labor unions since the days of Pa Michael Imoju, over 100 years ago. But I'm saying, don't use the same option too often. Otherwise, and more so, what are your priorities? Like the case in NAN, the case under discussion, I'm saying, for instance, you said you want the protest or the whatever you want to do is because of workers in Imo. But to the best of my knowledge, it goes beyond that. From what I've learned, there was a preferred candidate Ajaero has in Imo Labour election. And it will seem like Opuzodima, the governor, also has another candidate. So it's a tug of war. Who controls the soul of NLC in Imo? And Ajaero being from Imo State, you need to be circumspect so that you are not perceived as pursuing parochial interest.
Mr. Ojo, I think it's very important. It's very important that we separate the work that the NLC does from politics, which I think is what you're highlighting. They must really do the work of Nigerians, not personal interest, not political interest or the likes. And it will take a long while for us to get back to the point where the NLC wields the level of influence that is expected to wield. For now, it's a long work, a lot of work that needs to be done. Mr. Ojo, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to having you again.
My pleasure. Do have a great day.
You as well.